the closer the armor is to 0, or the closer the, basically, yeah, the closer the armor is to 0, the more armor effects have on it. Now, if you're reducing armor, well, the closer you bring the armor to 0, the more that debuff had as effect, which means if you have, an Orb of Corruption hitting a 5 armor target, you're doing the most you could possibly do with that orb. If you hit a 20 armor target, you're doing significantly less. If you hit a negative 20 armor target, you're doing even less. So, that's part of the reason why the orb is so good against Orc. I mean, yeah, you have Coil as damage output and occasionally Nova as damage output, but Frost Armor really has the preference. You are reducing, something like 25% of the Blademaster's survival. If you really hit it on a 5 armor unit, which is like a level 1 or 2 Blademaster, it's supposed to have 30% increased hit points, which, if you do the math, and I'm not going to, is maybe like 25%, just throw numbers out there, damage increase. And that's pretty significant. If you're doing that a Tauren Chieftain who's like level 4 and has maybe like 3 armor, or he picked up a Circlet, so he's like 3.5, you're doing, 20-something, 24% or so on damage increase. It's very significant. So, good stuff. Basically, you're having a very severe damage multiplication effect. I mean, that's just all it is. So the Dark Ranger, the point of the Dark Ranger is, of course, for silence. You'll probably rarely see them cast Black Arrow or Life Drain, but if you really want that extra damage output, I mean, I guess you can do it. But the whole point of silence is twofold. I mean, obviously, you want to silence your opponent's heroes, la-di-da. But number one, a Tauren Chieftain speed scrolling into the front of your army and casting a War Stomp is devastating. It will screw you up pretty hard because it gives them the opportunity to get all the way into position. And you lose damage output, you take damage, la-di-da. If he speed scrolls into the front of your army and you silence him, it does one of two things. Either he sits there not casting War Stomp for 8 seconds, which is a ton of time to focus him down, or he simply casts an Invulnerability Potion and then War Stomps. And if he casts his Invul Pot early enough, the thing is, those potions have a pretty long cooldown. I want to say 30 seconds or more. It's probably closer to a minute, but I could be completely wrong. It's certainly enough to where you can't just chain them together. That's absolutely a fact. And so if you make the TC cast his Invul Pot at the beginning of the battle, you have free reign to focus him at any time for the rest of the game, or for the rest of that battle, within reason, of course. And so what that does is you either focus him at the beginning after you silence, and you bring him to half within like 4 seconds, or he casts the Invul Pot, and then he stops right away, but you made him burn the Invul Pot. I mean, you can't stop heroes from casting spells indefinitely, especially if they have invulnerability, whatever. But you can certainly make him waste items or buy yourself time. I mean, regardless, you'll buy yourself time. The second point is the Blademaster. If he's trying to, be a Blademaster and chop down statues in the back of your army, and you turn and focus him, you Frost Armor the statue, you coil the Blademaster, you focus him with your Lich and everything, and what's going to happen? He's going to get slowed by Frost Armor unless he's supremely lucky and purges that first hit. He's going to have maybe like 1 armor, which is like 6% damage reduction instead of like 30% damage reduction, and he's going to be taking tons of damage, and you silence him so that he's still running slow, he's not able to windwalk, and he either chooses, do I take all this damage, or do I burn my Invulnerability Potion? And the thing is, if he burns the Invul Pot, okay, fine, you can focus him when he comes out of it, but the thing is, next time he comes after you, next time he focuses something, you coil, Nova, silence, and he is gone for. The thing is, every unit, basically, or every hero has 2 lives. They have the damage you deal until he Invul Pots, and the damage you deal after he Invul Pots. This is really why people buy them so much. It's a complete get out of jail free card, and especially for a Blademaster where he has like 20 lives with Windwalk, you can really abuse the fact that he can't do anything because you can't stop potion usage. There's simply no stun in the Undead army. There's not one in the Elf army either. You can't stop potion usage on either of those 2 races. Now, the good thing about Human and Orc and why they're not the worst race in the game is because you actually have stuns available and you can stop potion usage. If you stun a hero, then you can't Invul Pot. It's pretty good stuff. But by robbing the Blademaster basically of his second life and making him burn his Invul early, I mean, we saw that sort of in this game where the Blademaster chopped down a statue and then he windwalked. He started chopping down another statue. And then I believe he got focused on, so he had to burn an Invul Pot. And then he had to just windwalk and hide. And then he stupidly went for the Dark Ranger, and then he got silenced and killed. Or he didn't even get silenced, I don't think. He just simply died because he had no mana left. And he tried to win Orc eventually when he got mana, but he got focused down. And if it wasn't for silence, he wouldn't have had to burn some of those invulnerability potions that take quite as much damage earlier on in the game, or in that battle. It's very useful. Other than that, I'm not really sure what else to say. I mean, I really am a fan of the undead strategy where you simply use fiends and hero focus. You know, I mean, the Blademaster really is a key part of the undead army. And the thing is, part of the reason Dark Ranger is even so good is not just because of silence, but it's certainly very good. Now, it's not the highest damaging unit or hero in the game. It's agility, but it's more like Priest of the Moon, where it has pretty poor stat gain. I mean, the Naga Sea Witch has more physical damage output than Dark Ranger. It simply has a slower cooldown, or sorry, a faster cooldown, a lower cooldown. It simply has more of its base stat. The intelligence on a Naga Sea Witch is higher than the agility on a Dark Ranger. Frost Arrows is certainly a better ability for focusing heroes, but it's still 25 something, and that's just at level 1, normal damage. Well, hero damage, but it does full to heroes. So when you're dropping a Blademaster's effective hit points by 30%, and you're hitting it with fiends who do maybe 15 damage, pretty slowly at that, you know, okay, yeah, they're slowly picking them off. But if you have a Dark Ranger who's doing like 25 damage, and at a much faster rate, you know, in terms of food efficiency per damage, it's quite a bit of damage output. I mean, it's not like, oh my god, one Dark Ranger is going to beat 8 fiends, but a Dark Ranger doesn't cost as much as 8 fiends. It costs as much as 2 fiends. And the damage output adds up. It's just worthwhile. And, you know, considering the fact that heroes take more experience to level, the higher they get, you know, if you end up splitting your hero levels a little bit more, and, you know, instead of having, let's say, 5 and 3, you've got 3, 3, 3, which is roughly the same amount of experience, you're doing more damage that way. And you've got the availability of silence. You simply got better hero focus by getting Dark Ranger. It's pretty useful stuff. So that's basically the 2 reasons why DR is picked up. And, yeah, I think that's about all there is to say. So, thank you for tuning in. And if you would like lessons or personal audios or training or whatever, or account leveling, feel free to PM me. I would love to hear your comments about how this audio went. If you know, still learned something, or if I need to take better notes, or, you know, what have you. But thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.